We are still waiting for the Supreme Court's opinion on Donald Trump's presidential immunity claim 1 day before the CNN presidential debate. The next chance for its decision is tomorrow, just hours before that first face-off. Does the court take that into account? Fox News Sunday anchor and chief legal correspondent Shannon Bream and Fox News legal editor Kerri Kupec join us now. Thanks to both of you for joining us. So, Shannon, does the court take that into mind?
Listen, the chief always tells us when the opinions are ready, we release them. I think that they are obviously aware, as people who live and breathe and read newspapers and see news accounts, that there's a presidential debate tomorrow night. But the court has always said it wants to be as apolitical as possible, and that is something the chief has wanted to protect the public reputation of the court and any appearance of trying to be political in any way. They're going to want to avoid that. If anything, I think it would make them hold off the decision to Friday. We could go into next week, so maybe even later. But possible we get it tomorrow on debate day.
I guess anything could happen based on all of that. So, Kerri, what do you think about this? Do you think the court, knowing what Shannon just said, they're people too, they know what's going on, does that play a part?
Yeah, I actually completely agree with Shannon in that, if anything, I think it makes them all the more motivated to wait until the last day, because this pressure they've been getting from the outside, this criticism that they're quote unquote taking too long, actually the Supreme Court is acting completely consistently with how they normally do. You have to remember, they did expedite hearing this case, and we only heard it, what, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So normally, in the normal order of course, a case of this magnitude argued this late in the term would come down on the last day. So really anything before that would be them acting out of character. And so I wonder sometimes if some of these folks who are criticizing the court just don't understand how they normally operate, because they are actually normally operating right now.
Okay. As far as Shannon, this judge, the Juan Merchan judge, partially lifting the gag order on Trump in the New York case, how does that allow him to speak differently on the debate stage tomorrow night if this does indeed come up?
Well, he's allowed to talk about witnesses and the jury. And so you can picture him maybe talking about, Michael Cohen or even Stormy Daniels. I mean, those are things that until this point that gag order had existed. Now, remember, of course, the former president had violated it, had been found in violation of it numerous times, and had been fined over it. So it hadn't really slowed him down. But it doesn't mean he's going to be able to talk about prosecutors or court employees or their families. So you've heard him on the stump talk about those things. He'll have to be really careful. But he will have now the open door to talk about witnesses he feels like were untrue or really hurt his case in a way he found unjust.
Kerri, what about you? What does this allow him to say that he couldn't before if it comes up?
Well, he can talk about the witnesses and the jurors if he chooses to, but I think what's maybe most important to Donald Trump to be able to talk about are the individual prosecutors themselves. And why is that? Because we know that the former number 3 DOJ official left that prime spot to go become effectively Alvin Bragg's right-hand man and drive this case. So when Donald Trump talks about Biden's DOJ is after me, that is what he's talking about. Now, of course, we don't have any evidence to suggest there was any kind of collaboration between the Department of Justice and the New York prosecutors. However, I've wondered, if he wants to talk about Matthew Colangelo, how far can he go? Can he say Biden DOJ, and is that okay? But because certainly if he started talking about Colangelo by name, that could run afoul of the gag order that's been imposed against him.
Finally, if I could ask both of you ladies, Shannon, about the Supreme Court now acknowledging the accidental posting of this Idaho abortion case document that may have previewed the outcome of one of these cases.
Yeah, if you want me to take that first, I'll just say the court has said there was a document that was posted. They said we have not released the opinion. And so really until the minute they decide it's official and they release it, people can be changing their opinions, their concurrences, their dissents. And what we've seen, if that document turns out to be accurate, is there is a lot of back and forth and tension between Justices Kagan, Justice Alito, and others, and they may still be fine-tuning the language that goes into that opinion. But again, the court says it's just a document, no opinion released just yet.
Really rare that would happen, right? Kerri, what did it tell you?
I thought it was interesting because you have to remember the fact that they took up this case at all when they did in the timeline was highly unusual and extraordinary. They granted something called cert before judgment, which means they took up the case before it actually had gone through all the appellate courts. And the reason that a court takes a rare step like that is if it's of an issue of, the utmost highest importance to the public. So given what's been going on in abortion, Idaho passes this abortion law, they go ahead, grant cert before judgment. So you would have thought that for sure they were going to issue some kind of decision on the merits of the case. Instead, according to this draft decision, now Shannon mentions it's not the final yet, so things could change. But what we saw today, it looks like they said, actually, never mind. We jumped the gun. We're going to send it back. We're going to have the Ninth Circuit take a look at it. And then, in fact, the case could come back before them again.
All right, ladies, we broke a lot of... Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Kerri, finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, and I have to wonder if, and I would be curious to know what Shannon thinks about this. You know, initially when they granted that cert before judgment, it struck me as a bit reactive, emotionally reactive to the pressure and the politics of abortion. And now again, when they're kind of saying, let's actually, never mind, we don't want to look at this anymore, is that also a reaction to the pressure and the politics of abortion leading up to this election? It's just very interesting.
Shannon, real quick. Yeah, just really quickly, it's really rare that they do this where they fully brief, hear the arguments, hear the case, sit down, have their contentious arguments over it behind closed doors, and then say, we're not going to issue a decision. Very rare.
Okay. Appreciate both of you ladies joining us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.